friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be sharing with you all of the classics I want to read in 2021. Hello friends, my name is Lexi. Welcome back to my channel. Today I will be talking to you all about the classics that I want to read this year. Because yes, this year I would like to enrich my life with some of the classics. I don't know what this was. Honestly, I really wanted to read more classics last year, but I did not make it a priority. And I feel like this year, as a personal challenge to myself, I really wanted to put a video out there almost as like accountability to make sure that I am actually reading the classics that I say I want to read. So here is what I'm doing. My goal is every single month I want to read one brand new class. Well, it's a classic, so it's not brand new. I would like to read one classic every single month. And to keep it spicy, I have gone ahead and put all of the classic titles in this jar. There's 21 titles in here because I didn't want to be absolutely certain what books I was going to be reading, and if I picked 12, I would know every single title. So I kind of, I have a lot of classics, and so I put them in here. But anyways, without further ado, let me share with you the classics that I will be reading this year. The first classic I have here, I actually don't have here, and that's because it is all the way upstairs, and that is Emma by Jane Austen. So this one is a for sure. This was already on my January TBR, and that is because I am doing a buddy read with my friend Christine for this book, and I am loving it so much. I'm actually listening to the audiobook while I read along, and it is so much fun. So this is about Emma, and Emma is like a little bit of a matchmaker with her friends. However, it goes a little bit awry. It's Jane Austen, it's a romance, it's a comedy, it's perfection. The next book is also a book that I am not necessarily putting in the list because this is going to be another buddy read with my dad. I'm so excited. My dad was like, I kind of want to read more this year. And I was like, Dad, that's so exciting. And I got a little bit too excited, and I think my enthusiasm scared him a little bit, so oops. But anyways, he wanted to do a buddy read, and he's always wanted to read Charles Dickens. So we are reading Great Expectations, and I love this edition so much. Look at how pretty that is. This is following Pip and his relationship with, what's her name? Magwitch, that's not it. But anyways, this is about Pip, and Pip gets basically sponsored by an anonymous benefactor so that he can become a gentleman. The next book that I really, really want to read is Anna Karenina, and this is by Leo Tolstoy. Now, okay, interesting proposition. So this book is huge. This book is almost 1,000 pages. It is 963 pages. So if I happen to pull a book like this, where it's clearly a lot, what I'm doing is I'm saying that I can split this between 2 months. And the only thing that I have to do to kind of make up for that is to read a really small classic in lieu of this. So like a short story collection by Fitzgerald, which is like 100 pages, or maybe one of the shorter Virginia Woolfs. I want it to be manageable. I don't want to put unrealistic expectations on myself. So if I get a book that's this chunky, I can technically split this up and then read a smaller classic in the meantime. So this is about Anna Karenina. This is set in Russia. This is technically a Russian classic. And Anna Karenina has an affair with a man that she really loves, and it's a great tragedy. All I know, very excited. Next up, we have Paradise Lost, and this is by John Milton. This is essentially a retelling of Lucifer and how he fell as an angel, but it's sort of from his perspective. It's a classic. It sounds kind of dark, but I've heard excellent things about it, so can't wait. Next up is 1984 by George Orwell. This, I think, is a dystopian. All I know is that this takes place in the future, and everyone is kept an eye on by the government, who is called Big Brother. Next up is The Curious Case of Benjamin Button by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Benjamin Button is basically the tale of a man whose life is in reverse. So he starts off as an old man, and then he dies as a baby, and we are just following along in his journey. Next up is Villette, and this is by Charlotte Bronte. This is about Lucy Snow, and Lucy Snow, I think, becomes a teacher at a boarding school for all girls, and I think it's about her relationships with all of them. Sounds pretty cool. Next up we have Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. This book is written in stream of conscious. Virginia Woolf was part of a club called the Romantics, who really specialized in art, poetry, and literature. And all I know about this is that it is the thoughts and the inner dialogue of a woman named Mrs. Dalloway as she is getting ready for her party. But I think this explores different themes of feminism and what women had to go through during the time. So I think it'll be pretty cool. The next book is The Bloody Chamber, and this is by Angela Carter. This is a vintage classics. Look at how beautiful this is. So these are fairy tales, but they have been retold, I think, with like a feminist twist. I really don't know a lot more than that, but I do know that Angela Carter is a staple in the fairy tale community. I've heard that her work is brilliant, and I'm very, very excited to read it. I absolutely love fairy tales, and this sounds incredible. Next up is a book that was on my TBR for last year, and I did not actually get to read, and that is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. So this is about a girl who was unnamed. She's an unnamed narrator who marries a man, and he takes her back to his mysterious, big, beautiful mansion. But everywhere she goes, she hears whispers about his ex-wife named Rebecca. And so she feels haunted by Rebecca's presence. This is a Gothic tale. It sounds really creepy. I actually really, really enjoyed the Netflix adaptation with Lily James. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and it definitely got me even more excited to read Rebecca. Next up is another vintage Russian classic, and that is The Master and Margarita. This book I really don't know a lot about, but I have heard excellent things. I've heard that it has like speculative and possibly magical realism elements in it. There's a talking cat who is supposed to be the devil or something like that. It just sounds really cool. It sounds like something that I think I'm gonna really, really like. So I don't know. I don't really know a lot about it other than the talking cat. But honestly, as soon as I heard that, I was like, okay, I'm in. Next is the Iliad, and this is of course by Homer. So I started to read this. I'm actually on page 73 or something like that. I started to read this last year, but I didn't actually get to finish it, and I would like to finish it and complete my annotations this year. I just really, really enjoyed this. This is the story of the Trojan War, and it's really fascinating so far, like hearing all about the Greek mythology and how the gods intervened and all of the different dynamics between all of the people. But I also really, really wanted to read this because Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller is one of my favorite books of all time. And I know that those characters were both in here, so I really want to see their story unfold. That's it. Next up I have The Count of Monte Cristo, and this is by Alexandra Dumas. So this is the story of revenge. This is about Edmond Dantes, and Edmond Dantes is wrongly accused of something he did not commit, and then he's sent to jail where he decides that he wants revenge, and he becomes the Count of Monte Cristo when he gets out. The next book on this list is The Odyssey, and this again is by Homer. This is what happens after Troy and the Trojan War, although I think they can technically be read out of order. This specifically is following Odysseus on his journey home back to where he came from, and he faces like a lot of trials, and I've heard it's really, really good. I've heard it's even better than the Iliad, so I can't wait. Also, this edition is by Emily Wilson. It is stunning. Very, very excited to read this. The next book I have here is Bleak House, and this is by Charles Dickens. So now it's funny because there are a couple of booktubers who I really look up to who have said that they hate this book. But the reason I put it on this list is because when I was in undergrad and I was studying English literature, there was a girl who made her entire, what is it called, thesis or something? Like, we had to write this really, really long 30-page paper about what we had learned from basically like all of our time at our school, or like our favorite aspect, or something that we could teach people. She did it on Bleak House because she studied it, and she said that the book changed her life. And so I was like, I have to read that because I listened to her presentation and it like really moved me. So I really do want to read this, but now I don't know if I'm gonna like it because I've seen a lot of people say that they don't like it. So Who knows? Next up we have Jane Eyre, and this is by Charlotte Bronte. So this is about Jane, and Jane lives a very hard life, and then eventually she is sent to help out at this big house. She thinks that like the house is haunted or something. She's hearing strange things, and it's a Gothic tale about her at this house with this guy. Sorry for the bad summary. Next is the Canterbury Tales, and this is by Geoffrey Chaucer. So I studied this in my undergrad literature course, but we didn't read the whole thing. We only read like 4 or 5 tales. One of my favorite ones that we read was The Miller's Tale. And if you know, you know, because it's so funny. But that tale actually made me want to read the entire book. This is about sort of like a tavern is full and people are taking turns telling different stories, and some of the stories are really funny, some are really tragic, some are romantic, some are heartbreaking. It's kind of a little bit like 1001 Arabian Nights, like each tale is totally different. But yeah, I really want to read it. Next I have We Have Always Lived in the Castle, and this is by Shirley Jackson. This is another book that I really wanted to read last year, but I didn't get to it, and this is a Gothic tale, and it's about a girl whose entire family was poisoned, and I think that she lives alone in this castle, but the townspeople don't like her or her family. Next is a book that was entirely inspired by how much I loved the Muppets version of this movie. Who's got cabin fever? I do, because of COVID. And that is Treasure Island. Who wrote this? Robert Louis Stevenson, duh. Okay, so this is Treasure Island. All I know is that this is about pirates and a map and an adventure, and I've always wanted to read it. I loved the Muppets movie so much. It was actually my favorite movie when I was like a little kid, so I think it'll be fun to read the actual physical book. So next on the list I have 2 modern classics. The first is that I want to read any book by Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison has written Beloved, Song of Solomon, and The Bluest Eye, and I really want to read any of her works. I've heard that her writing is lyrical and beautiful and moving, and I really want to try reading some of her works this year. The next modern classic that I have is 100 Years of Solitude, and this is by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. This particular book follows one family and it spans for generations. I've heard that this is some of the most beautiful magical realism to ever exist, and I know that it has a lot of themes of anti-colonialism, which I think is really cool. So that's that one. Next up I want to read Sherlock Holmes. So here I have The Hound of the Baskervilles, and then this one is A Study in Scarlet. It's just about a detective who is really smart with his sidekick Watson, and they solve crimes. Next up I have a book that I've technically already read, but it's been years and I want to reread it, and that is Gulliver's Travels, and this is by Jonathan Swift. Jonathan Swift was a really great author, and I've actually enjoyed everything from him that I've read, and I just want a refresher on Gulliver's Travels. I think it'd be a really fun book to read this year. This is about a guy named Gulliver, and he goes and travels to impossible worlds, and it's just a good time. It's like some of the worlds are like fantastical, and yeah, it's kind of hard to explain. Gulliver's Travels, okay. Next up is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is another really small one, and I feel like everyone knows Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but it's about a scientist who accidentally creates something that turns him into a monster with super strength, but I don't think he remembers becoming a monster. So he's 2 people. He is the rational good scientist, and then he is like this evil bad monster guy. But yeah, it sounds really cool. Also, this edition is so pretty. And the very last book on this list is, of course, Frankenstein. I was so sad that I didn't read this last year. I really want to make it a priority, even if I don't pull it from the jar. This is about a scientist, and I think his name is Victor Frankenstein, and he creates a monster. The monster is kind of hideous and scares everyone, and so the scientist hates it, and it's just about that whole experience. Yeah. But there you have it, you guys. Those are all of the classics I want to read this year. I will only be reading 12 this year. Are there any books that you think I would particularly really like from this list, or are there any classics you think that I should add to my TBR list? Let me know down in the comments. I'm really excited. I'm gonna start pulling classics in February, which is happening so soon. soon, and I don't know why, but like I really want to like stick my hand in the jar and like pull one out. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, okay. I think that's it for now though, book lovers. So thank you so much for tuning in. I love you guys so very much. Also, please feel free to tell me one of your favorite classics down below as well. I would love to know. But until next time, you guys, keep your head in the clouds and your heart in a book. And I will talk to you very soon. Bye!
You were my best friend. Didn't care about the rules, good on the weekends. I'll be in fools, drifting to deep space. So brave and so stupid, just like the movies. I was gonna say in the